Hello and welcome to another episode of Literary Gladiators, the show where we discuss and debate literature in all of its forms. If it's written work, it's game.
It's game.
Let's meet the panel.
Ari. Trevor.
I'm Danielle.
And I'm Josh. So Danielle, you're working on a series, Books as Bad as Twilight, with your friend Brittany.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more about that series.
So basically, it's a podcast. You can listen on any podcatcher service that you can find, iTunes, Google Play, what have you. And we pick a book and we read it chapter by chapter, and we'll go over a certain amount of chapters every episode. Right now, we're talking about a book called Lost in a Book by Jennifer Donnelly. If you're not familiar with it, it is based off of the new Beauty and the Beast movie. So make of that what you will. And we're having fun with that. We're moving on to season 2. I believe at the end of this month, the end of June, into July. So, yeah, definitely check it out.
So what's the name of the podcast again?
Books as Bad as Twilight.
There are definitely books that I think you'd want to run away from.
Yeah.
Like books you'd want to run away from. Specifically run away to 2 Mills, PA, which is what we're going to be talking about today with Jerry Spinelli's Maniac Magee.
I also wanted to mention that Twilight's one of the 5 books I have no interest in reading.
And 50 Shades and Archie comics.
might
And if you want to know the rest, go to his video.
Oh,
it's a good one.
Danielle, you have a discussion starter for Maniac Magee?
Yes, I do. So obviously, the role of myth plays a big role in this book, specifically with Maniac and his legacy, if you will, in the town. But if you think about it, also the separation of the East and the West and how they view each other as in these almost mythical terms, they don't understand one another. And I was wondering what we thought about myth in general when it comes to like how we view outsiders, how we view people we don't understand, in terms of how this book approaches that subject matter, especially with Maniac Magee.
I think this book's ahead of its time. I think where we get a lot of stuff when it comes to viewing outsiders. I'm going to put that in quotes because is there really such thing as an outsider? Like viewing outsiders and the race in this book anyway, it's racial. The split in the middle of the town where one side wants so little to do with the other that they don't even understand. They don't even treat them like human beings, and it's just it's really sad.
It depends on what you mean by ahead of its time, because I think
for people who are reading this book, like younger adults
for younger adults, it's a great way to introduce them to the strains.
Sorry, I should have been more specific. I was specifically talking about the reading level of the people who would be reading this book.
Yes, because I think that because the issues had taken place several years earlier and in worse conditions. And there's other forms of media and literature that have addressed it. However, I would agree with you with regard to how Spinelli addresses it and how Maniac Magee himself is a relatively influential character who is willing to go across each of the boundaries and do as he pleases, whether it be eat a chocolate bar that was bitten by a black kid, or take a bath with 2 black kids.
I honestly think that the message brought across in this book, it should apply very much right now, and I feel that it's not applying as much, which is a little bit of a shame. But I do think the message it brings across is a very good message, and I kind of think that in a way, in a very, very general way, Maniac Magee is basically the reader. The West Side is one group of people, and the East Side is another group of people. And the reader is just like, it kind of is like Phantom Tollbooth. No, I mention it because you have Milo, who's like this independent variable in a way. And he meets characters that don't like each other, like the King Azaz and the Math Magician, right? And he brings them together in the end. And that's kind of what Maniac Magee does in this story. He kind of brings the East and the West together.
In a way, I would say that we take on the role of Maniac Magee as the reader, but I didn't necessarily feel that connection as I was reading it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I wouldn't say so, but I know what you're getting at. Like, maybe he's independent from. So where does he belong? That brings up that question. And throughout the book, we see that he's searching for a place where he wants to belong. He puts the number when he's living with, and I apologize if I forget the character's name. Grayson, yes. And then he erases it when Grayson dies. So the whole book he's searching. And arguably, do you think he ever finds a place he belongs by the end of it? Because I never...
Maybe the place he belongs is the fact that he keeps running. Maybe that is his home.
Amanda takes him back and forces him to come back and live with the Beals, but whether or not that is his home, they were probably nicest group to him, not that...
So, I have an interesting question. I asked the three of you. It's a very quick and easy question. I'm going to start with you, Trevor. Define home. What does home mean to you?
Home, it's not necessarily about geography. It's not about the structure of a building. It's about the feeling, you know? If it's a place you feel comfortable, not just a place, but a time, a group of people, a circumstance you feel extremely comfortable with.
What about you, Danielle?
I would agree with that. Yeah, definitely an experience or a place that, like you said, not physical maybe, but just a place where you feel most comfortable, I would say. A place where you can go and you feel comfortable with people around.
And that you can call yours. Yeah. And you can say that you have a piece of, in a way.
Yeah.
So, in a way, Maniac Magee's kind of been running all his life. It's what he does, and he likes doing it, and he's pretty comfortable with it. And maybe by saying the definitions that you just gave me, that maybe he is comfortable running away, and that is what his home really is.
Yeah, and that makes sense actually, because like with the whole, I was actually reading some like study guides for kids who would read this book in school, and one of the questions was talking about like how Maniac is constantly telling the twins, I think they're twins, brothers, to go to school, but he himself never goes to school. He,
it's hypocritical, but
in a way, it's hypocritical.
It's
but
not
he doesn't
like
want
that.
them to end up the way he.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
The way that he's, the position that he's in.
Yeah.
But they lived in such a crummy environment. The brother is a bully, and the father is a loser. I would say. That's
to reference another one of Spinelli's books.
Yeah.
But I'll admit that there are times in life I've made mistakes, and then like. I graduated from college. I didn't do as well as I wanted to, though. And so what I did is I told some people who were going into college as soon as I was leaving, I'm like, don't do this. You want to do what I didn't do.
I think it's smart.
That's right.
Granted, neither one of us is from the STEM background. I think it's easier if you're in the STEM area.
What is
science, technology, engineering, mathematics, nursing, anything having to do with medicine.
Okay.
I'm definitely not STEM.
Ready.
But I was wanted to briefly mention. Actually, you can go first because it seems like you have something prepared.
Yeah.
Okay.
You go first.
Well, I was thinking about definitely if I had to call my favorite character, it definitely was Grayson, because frankly, he saw himself pretty much in Maniac, and I think the one line at the end of chapter 31, where it's like 5 days later, the old man was dead. I literally, that's a tough line. Like, you don't even have to read the beginning of 32 to understand. That just came out of nowhere. Like, it's like someone threw a baseball at your face. Well, if Grayson threw a baseball at your face, that's what it would feel like. And
Grayson, though, that seemed to be the turning point of the piece where Maniac interacted with him.
Well, I actually thought the turning point was at the beginning of part 2.
When he starts
meeting Grayson, yeah.
But that's where you get a sense of what Maniac Magee can do as far as
and really what's going to happen.
He seemed to be receiving help with the Beals. Now he's providing even though Grayson's providing him with some things, he in turn is giving him an education, teaching him how to read, giving him a Thanksgiving and a Christmas.
Yeah. Do you think that's actually so in the beginning of the book? He is parentless, and then so he's looking for somebody to take care of him, for like a guardian. And then in that middle point, he meets Grayson, and he has that guardian. And when Grayson dies, it's almost like not a real coming of age, but for this book, a coming of age where he then has to take on this parental role, and then that's when he does take on the parental role.
And it's also not just coming of age; it's also coming of role as well. What role do you have? Are you a teaching role? Are you a receiving role?
It takes on
in a way
kind of parental role. With
in the end, it's very much both. That you can be both. I think a very important lesson in this book is that you can be both a teacher and a receiver at the same time, and that you don't have to just be a giver or a receiver.
I have a question. Sorry, go ahead.
Or you don't always have to take on the role of being brave. You can also show some fear. Maniac again shows both of those. Particularly, he's brave enough to jump the fence and into Finster Wally's backyard, but he shows fear on the trolley tracks.
Oh yeah.
But that, I think, with the trolley tracks, it gets more under his skin because his parents were killed in a trolley accident.
Yeah.
Maybe instead of
an intoxicated driver.
Instead of calling it Maniac Magee, they just call it Ambivalent Magee. Because it feels like almost everything in the story can have two emotions at the same time. And
what would you be more likely to buy, Ambivalent Magee or Maniac Magee?
Oh no, I'm not.
He's got a point.
I am not saying. What I was going to say is that I think that Maniac in the title is actually a subjective from the characters in the book.
That's true. Yeah.
However, that's only
that's
one of the first times that he backs down from something.
Like Maniac Magee, yeah, that's the better title. I'm just saying is that if it was called, if I were to call it something, if I wasn't selling or anything, I was just going to call it something. I call it Ambivalent Magee because I feel it's more accurate.
What about the role of names, though, speaking of that? Like, with Maniac versus Jeffrey. What about Mars Bars and, what is his name? Snickers, they call him. Like, this shedding of names for something new, which did Jeffrey shed a name to become Maniac? Did he choose that, or I guess that's the
That
myth?
was that other people called
Other
him.
people call him that.
But he was in the Beals house. He was known as Jeffrey.
Right.
So
I think you earn your name. That's what I honestly. So if just because you don't have a nickname doesn't mean you're different. But like the people who do have nicknames or titles, even like Doctor or something, they earn those titles, and it's up to the person to whether or not it's respect what they want to be chosen. For instance, like with our friend Charlie at Literary Gladiators, sometimes I'll call him Charles and sometimes I'll call him Charlie because I can never actually be sure which one's more respectful.
And sometimes, just for flippancy, I call him Chucky.
See that I was raised in a family where I wouldn't do that. I would not call someone by, unless I am given permission to. I will not call someone by a nickname.
In my case,
Charlie pretty much refers to himself as Charlie too, so I would think it's okay. My grandpa called him Sticks.
I just forgot. Like I just when I'm in the moment with Literary Gladiators, I just kind of forget. But back to the point is that you earn your name. Really, you earn your name and you earn your title.
And sometimes, when you have the title or name, you do with it what you will. I mean, when Mars Bar was talking about how Jeffrey beat him in the race, he actually talks about it not happening to him, but to his younger brother, Milky Way. And which brings me to a thought. Toward the end of the book, Mars Bar, Amanda, and Maniac pretty much become fast friends. So would that make them the Three Musketeers? Just a pure speculation.
Depends on what happens.
What about D'Artagnan?
That's well, he was one of the original Three Musketeers. Aramis
was the fourth one, right?
But I digress.
But Mars Bar was a bit I think toward the end, he became a bit of an inconsistent character with how suddenly Maniac brings him to the birthday party.
I do have to admit that when we go to our ratings later, Mars Bar is going to have a significant impact on my score.
I was just going to say, with that whole birthday party thing that you mentioned, I honestly wondered what the purpose of that was for Maniac, because it seemed to hurt Mars Bar to be there. That what he was doing was he was trying to bridge this gap between both sides, but all he was doing was making it worse. But I couldn't tell if the book was going for that, or if that was just me being like...
I honestly think that most of... a lot of the book was not written very well, but it also could be because it's a younger adult book.
Yeah, it was a bit inconsistent where allegedly Maniac told Mars Bar that you're not hot stuff if you don't have the courage to head over to the West End. And
I think it's like simple and quick ways to put across a lesson, basically. Not to say that it's wrong, it's just that it's for younger kids. So it's going to be worded. You're not going to have 20 chapters about how Maniac goes on a journey from the East End to the West End. You'll bore the kids to death.
I know that much, but I know that I think it could have been there could have been a much smoother way to have Mars Bar come with Maniac to the West End.
Yeah, because it seemed like he was kind of mean for a really long time, and all of a sudden, just the shift, and suddenly they're friends. And I know that can happen sometimes, but I kept waiting for this like character growth, and
I almost thought that Mars was going to betray Maniac, but I realized there weren't enough pages left in the book.
I just thought they wouldn't be friends. Like, as I was going, I was like, oh, I guess they're not going to ever reconcile this, and maybe that's a good thing, and then that didn't happen.
And you can understand, too, because they're two different kinds of people.
The book pretty much opens up with somebody in the future telling about the events of Maniac Magee, but doesn't have a proper book end for an ending.
Yeah.
It just
You would
stops
think that there would
midway through the tale.
Yeah, that's a good point, because the way that they were saying it, this happened a while back, because it was released in 1990. If there were strains as far as race went, I would think that this can go as far back as... Actually, is there any mention of time? Because it could be as far as 20 to 25 years back.
I forget. I don't know.
Question.
I don't know if it specifically said anything, but I would assume. You say 20 years back, maybe even further than that, like the 60s or the 70s.
It could be. It depends on what
I remember Grayson said something about a D-League that didn't exist anymore. So maybe that could give an idea of how.
You also have the laws as far as race went. Granted, it wouldn't be as bad in Pennsylvania as, say, Alabama,
Virginia, or Mississippi.
Yeah.
Do we have any final thoughts you want to bring up?
I guess the only thing I'll say is that, obviously this book is very much about race. Obviously it is a book for kids, but I did find the simplistic nature of it was kind of left me feeling a bit wanting more. Like, again, oh, I'll just bring Mars Bar to this party and everything will be solved. And it's not. And it just seemed, or I'll live with this black family, and because we get along, racism's fixed. And it just felt a little...
I'm not sure if it really was saying racism's fixed. I think it's just saying we are respectful and we're going to allow you to live here so long you respect us.
Or even we're more alike than we're different.
The racism will never be fixed. It's an unfortunate fact of life. There's going to be at least one person in this world who doesn't like someone else because of any reason.
And you also have to take into account the audience. I would say the perfect audience is 9 to 13 years old.
I read this when I was in 4th grade. I was 10.
Oh, yeah.
This was actually the first time I read it.
Me too.
Yeah, same here.
I'll confess, I try to stay away from the Newbery novels because there's an unfortunate trope online about the Newbery novels And there's a literary quote that goes with it. I cannot remember the exact quote or where it came from, but it basically boils down to you get a kid's book with an animal on the cover and a Newbery sticker or another kind of award sticker.
Like Charlotte's Web.
Chances are that animal will be dead by the end of it.
Well, not Charlotte. Charlotte dies.
Charlotte dies, but Charlotte's Web is a really good book.
And Wilbur gets spared here.
So I guess.
Like
I didn't know what
but-
was that.
Yeah.
in Maniac Magee, in this case, there were only 3 people who passed that were named, both Maniac's parents and the aforementioned Grayson, among other unnamed. A 4th casualty was averted when but somehow they come out alive.
It's Piper and Russell.
Russell, that's his name.
And John is the brother, the McNabb brothers.
Because that's when they're running together, I think, Mars Bar and Maniac. Yeah, and that's why Maniac runs away and Mars Bar has to step up.
One prime example, again, of the Newbery death trope is Catherine Patterson.
Oh, with Bridge to Terabithia.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much that's the Citizen Kane of children's novels. Everybody knows by now. 2 kids in the story. One of them's dead by the end.
Right.
That's something I'll have to check out. So,
Of course, looking at the Disney poster of the movie, you wouldn't know that.
Well, that movie's awful.
My apologies to any of the film-going members of the audience.
What,
who might have taken
are you
umbrage.
talking about Bridge to Terabithia?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like it.
I mean, the book's amazing.
that'll be what I check out then. How would we rate Maniac Magee on a 0 to 5 scale with half stars per minute, Ari?
I'm gonna give Maniac Magee probably a 2.5 out of 5. I like the book. I liked it a lot more when I was a kid. I think because it kind of addressed me better. It was more I was able to understand it. I mean, I understand it now, but I feel like there's stuff missing, stuff that's inconsistent. I think Mars Bar. When I was younger, it didn't bother me, but now almost everything Mars Bars did was really not consistent. It was almost as if he rushed the ending. The only thing I really appreciated in this, well, not the only thing, but the thing I appreciated the most in this book was the character of Grayson and his relationship with Maniac. I think that was very well realized, and I wish it could have gone on a little longer. And of course, that line where he says, "Oh, 5 days later he was dead." That literally is a very chilling line, and that saves it. I actually might give it a half-star boost, just that one line in itself.
And it happened so suddenly. They were having such a great Christmas, and then 5 days later, he's gone.
I think it jumps it from a 2 to a 2.5 just because of that one line. So.
Trevor?
4 out of 5 butterscotch crimpets on account of I liked almost everything about the book except for the aforementioned lack of closure and the need for a sequel, just to follow up where the original storyteller left off.
I think I would give this a 3 out of 5. I just think the book, for me personally, was just kind of all over the place. I would have loved to have way more Grayson, more of a focus on that. And like you said, just the ending, there was no closure to it. I didn't know what the book was trying to say. But at the same time, I really enjoyed it.
I gave it a 4 out of 5 because I did enjoy it, and I think that the target audience of 9 to 13 can pick it up, read it, and get something out of it. And I think that when you're looking at it through that lens, it is a pretty meaningful piece. It is very inconsistent, especially the last part with how he ties things up with Mars Bar and how he backs out of saving the one twin from the trolley, and the way that it could have had a much smoother ending. But I still think that it was a good book to read, and I think that it really did a good job addressing issues involving race, color, creed, nationality, that kind of, especially the issue of race, and how Maniac Magee would not let that stand in his way. If you're interested in checking out Maniac Magee, I got the special 25th anniversary edition from Little City Books in Hoboken. This was a pretty good copy. I got it to prepare, and I finished it in a little more than a day. So this is a very fast read, and the way that the chapters are arranged is just fantastic as well. I like a short but meaningful chapter. So, Ari, you have something to share with the class?
Yes, with the class. So, for those of you who either have read Maniac Magee or will read Maniac Magee, you will note that both Maniac Magee, mostly, and also Grayson and a few of the other characters really like Tasty Cake Butterscotch Crimpets. So, I have decided to treat everyone, except Josh, because he doesn't like Tasty Cakes. But he'll get one anyway. But for everyone else who wants them, I brought Butterscotch Crimpets. These are Tasty Cake. Something interesting you should know about Jerry Spinelli is that the book took place in a fictional town called Two Mills, PA, which is actually based off of Norristown, PA, which also has a Hector Street, which is really interesting. So everyone enjoy your crimpets except for Josh.
That makes sense. Be sure to check out Danielle's channel. This is Danielle, and also her series, Books as Bad as Twilight, which can be found on that channel and on any podcast outlet. And be sure to join us next time for another episode of Literary Gladiators. And for now,
Keep reading and eat crimpets.